sheet that you need? Oh, you got one?
No, I've got a sheet too.
Okay,
Good job.
perfect.
Okay, great.
Thank you. So the Board of Education acknowledges that we are on the traditional territory of the Comox First Nation. We would like to thank them for the privilege of living on their land and the gift of working with their children. And I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda that the Board of Education of School District 71 adopt the January 31st, 2023 board meeting agenda as presented. Sarah Jane and Susan.
And then I have an amendment I'd like to make.
Oh, you
to
had
the
amendment,
agenda.
my
Yes.
apologies, go ahead.
That's okay. I'm just wondering on the board business, the notice of motion regarding write-up letter to the Minister of Education. I wonder if we can waive the 48 hours and just do that motion this evening, as it's really not, it's just very simple, writing a letter to the Minister asking to come visit us rather than waiting till next month. And we can waive the 48-hour notice and just vote on that this evening.
So can we do that when we get to that?
Yes, my understanding, I had it to bring it up at the agenda, at the adoption of the agenda, that I wish to make that request.
Rather than a notice of motion, that it would just be a motion as well.
Right, but do we bring it up at the
So
beginning? My
we can-
understanding is when we get to it.
We
I'm
could,
just
when we get, so a notice of motion is not debatable, so if it's a notice of motion, then it would continue, but if we want to waive notice of motion, we would need to pass another motion, and it would need 2/3 majority.
Right, but at the time
Yes,
on
at the
the
time, we
agenda.
could do that.
Whatever
at the
works.
time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So it was moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Moving on to the board meeting minutes, that the Board of Education of School District number 71 adopt the December 13th, 2022 regular public board meeting minutes as presented. Christy, seconder. Sarah Jane. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Unfinished business, there is none. And moving on to number 5. Oh, sorry, Secretary Treasurer.
So just on number 5, I just noticed an omission in the minutes. We did have an in-camera committee of the whole meeting on January 10th. It's not recorded in these minutes or in the agenda packets.
Okay.
So,
So,
January 10th,
2023.
2023.
In-camera committee of the whole meeting.
Yes.
Alrighty, so we'll work through a couple of things in number 5 then. So, on December 13th, 2022, we had a regular in-camera meeting, and on January the 10th, 2023, we had an in-camera committee of the whole.
Thank you.
Board chair report, I'll call it verbal, semi-written. As we look forward to longer days and everything the short but unpredictable February can bring, it is important to take a moment to recognize the new year we are in, including the Lunar New Year. Our district and your Board of Education have been busy with events and opportunities, and a few highlights to share are as follows. Our board has participated in several learning opportunities, virtually and in person, as we continue to gather and refine the tools we need to do our best work together as governors of our district. Each member of our board has a multitude of schools, board committees, and external committees where we represent the district and foster connections with our community. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for asking. We finally have the board committee list as part of our meeting today, and will officially resume our seats that may have been vacated or temporarily filled in the last few months. Thank you for all the invitations we are receiving to attend salad bar, school events, community events, and events with our municipal and provincial partners. Last week was Literacy Week, and there were many things going on in our schools supporting and promoting Literacy Week. And some of our administrators and the vice chair and myself were recorded reading children's books of our choice. I'm not sure what happened to those, but I know I certainly needed more practice. It's been a long time, I think, since I did something like that. And on the topic of literacy, we invite you to attend the session on February 14th at 4:30 on literacy and numeracy assessment. In January, representatives from our district, including members from our Equity and Action Steering Committee, attended a regional gathering in Campbell River with 8 other school districts. We discussed barriers to equity and what each district has done to eliminate these barriers in the 4 quadrants of the Equity and Action model. And the quadrants are policy and governance, learning environment, pedagogical core, and learning profile. And one of the things I found especially impactful was there was little cards on each table, and they were the norms for the session. And they were stay engaged, speak your truth, experience discomfort, expect and accept non-disclosure, listen for understanding, no fixing, and take risks. Last week, our district held the second session of Paddling Together Indigenous Literacy 101, led by Hereditary Chief Wedladi Speck. This is a learning series for our School District 71 leadership team and Board of Education. And it was a wonderful opportunity to continue our learning together. And next week is the first opportunity for our board chairs across the province to get together, to connect and to learn. And following that, well, the following day, we will be spending another day together at the partnered liaison meeting with our new Minister of Education and Childcare, Rashna Singh, and the superintendents and secretary treasurers from across BC. And just a heads up to February. February is Black History Month, and we look forward to the learning opportunities that will take place in our schools. Thank you. Presentations and delegations, we have none tonight. And for information only, our next open committee of the whole meeting, as I mentioned earlier, is February the 14th. Happy Valentine's Day at 4:30 here in the board office, with the topic being literacy and numeracy assessment, where we will all learn together with our Director of Instruction, Vivian Collier. And just to mention that the Open Committee of the Whole replaces our Education Committee. So you may have been familiar with the Education Committee, and now it's the Open Committee of the Whole. And moving on to number 9, strategic direction, and I will turn this over to the superintendent.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's in collecting district news and what's happening around, it was really nice to see the first thing submitted, and many of the stories that we get from schools are all the wonderful things that are happening back in schools that we've missed so long. We had some great results with our basketball teams, our Isabel Junior Girls team. If you haven't had a chance to watch them play, please try and make a point of it. They're quite a powerhouse. They're making a name for themselves in the Lower Mainland as well as here. Our Highland Senior Girls team is off to a fabulous start for the season and doing well as well. Vanier hosted their 52nd annual Towie Invitational Tournament. Interesting part, I saw a few clips and was fortunate enough to talk to some people who were there. The stands were packed, were absolutely jammed, which kind of scares you after coming out of where we came from over the last couple of years. But it's really nice to see the community back supporting our students and to see our students participating. We have an interesting approach to our athletics in our wrestlers and our wrestling community. Rather than have individual schools, we have a district team. So students and athletes from all over the district compete together on one team. And we're very fortunate. We had 2 first-time champions, Nathan Gaudette of Isfeld and Ethan Anderson of Vanier, went undefeated to take gold medals in the Nanaimo Open tournament competition. So good things coming out of the mat. Robotics team, January 21st, 14 of our Robotics 71 teams traveled to Victoria to complete the regional VEX Robotics, hosted by Claremont as usual. Comox Valley Schools teams were dominant, and the team 7842-X won the tournament. So you can read up about the exciting things that are happening. Robotics has always been a strength of our district, and we continue to get students out and destroying the competition, do I say? Family Literacy Week. I must say that I was asked to read a story as the assistant superintendent and I did, but I was told by the individual who was recording that the person that we were trying to uphold who set a high bar for us was our vice chair, Leslie, who had a knack for reading stories. And it could be all those years of being a kindergarten teacher that may have helped. But we did our best, and it was fun to do that. But you're right, it's been a while since we've had those opportunities. And lots of activities throughout our district around Literacy Week. So it was really, really nice to see. As well, Lunar New Year celebrations occurred in a number of our schools. Students dressed as lions and a dragon passed through class. Chinese food was offered as a hot lunch. So lots of activities in our schools, not only in the classroom, but in the hallways as well. Comox Valley Lacrosse Association volunteered with our coaches and players at 7 of our elementary schools so far this year. And they've been coming in for full day teaching students from K to 5 the basic skills of lacrosse. Again, a partnership with our community sports group. I know rugby has done the same, coming into our schools and helping out, which is a wonderful, wonderful experience. Trades programs in full swing. Our partnership with North Island is alive and well. 31 grade 12 students going off to trades in semester 2. So these are students who have either graduated early, in many cases, and will begin their careers and starting at NIC, culinary, hairdressing, auto service tech, carpentry, electrical, plumbing, heavy duty mechanics, and welding. So congratulations to those students and good luck. This spring, more Comox Valley students than ever before will be working as apprentices in the community and earning while learning. There are 60 students taking part in 480-hour work-based training programs that allow students to begin the process of apprenticeship while in school. Again, working with our community, we are so fortunate to have willing partners in our community that accept our students. Well-deserved celebration, the Medal of Good Citizenship for our EDAS teacher, Chantel Stefan, from Puntledge Park, was the recipient of the Medal of Good Citizenship presented at the legislature on January 25th. She was honored for her community activism through her leadership of the Everyone Deserves a Smile Club. Our school and community are proud of the work she and her team have done to make a difference in the lives of so many that struggle. So congratulations to Chantel and to all the students and staff that participate yearly in this activity. As was mentioned by our chair, the Equity in Action is underway. We've had 2 steering committee meetings. We took a team to Campbell River, where we had the opportunity to hear from other districts who have either gone through the process, are currently going through the process, or just starting, and to hear some of their successes and some of their what are they encountering and how are they dealing with certain aspects and questions that are coming to mind. So it was really a good opportunity to hear and a good opportunity for our steering committee to have those discussions. So the plan at this point in time is to have our subcommittees start, and we're hoping to have our first report back from our subcommittees prior to our spring break. A new anti-racism plan was released by the Ministry of Education and Childcare on Monday the 23rd. The district will be examining that very closely to ensure we're in compliance with the ministry's action plan. As you may recall, the district put a lot of work into our discrimination, non-discrimination and equity policy last year in AP. So we will again be working to make sure that we're in compliance and to see where else we can improve and what other things that we can do here. And as was mentioned before, very fortunate, our second session with our hereditary chief with Letty Speck and our leadership teams, a wonderful, wonderful event. We always leave that event just full of inspiration, knowledge, words of wisdom. I admire what Letty, he has the ability to hold an audience captive with no notes, nothing, for hours, just walking us through and telling us, sharing stories with us, sharing tradition, sharing awareness. It was a fabulous activity, and everyone who left complimented how wonderful it was. So we're really looking forward to the upcoming Professional Development Day, as well as our next two sessions with Chief Letty. And that is an update at this point.
Great, well, thank you. And so now over to the Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you, Chair. It's that time of year, we're at the halfway point, so when we get to the halfway point of the school year, we start looking towards the next school year and see what awaits us and what's coming ahead. Right now, we're in the middle of kindergarten registration. We've had 489 kindergarten students registered so far, and a total registration of about 535 K to 12. One of the really neat things this year about registration is our manager of communication has been able to directly target areas where we feel like the word has not gotten out. So just a case in point, Miracle Beach was pretty slow on the registration process for kindergarten students. They had about 11, and Craig sent out a targeted email to that area, and they jumped up to 25, within a week. So it's a really great tool for us. So I just keep my eyes on schools that are low and give Craig a tap on the shoulder and say, hey, I think we need some targeted advertising, and it really seems to be working. Right now, where we're sitting, we're about 85-ish students away from the break-even point where we begin to then grow as a district. So we base that just on the number of grade 12s that we anticipate will be graduating, the number of Ks and new registrations that have happened in the district, and that number right now is hovering in the mid-80s, and we still have 7 months before the first day of school, over 7 months before the first day of school. So we feel like we're in a good position to be a growing district again this year.
So a couple of questions. Are there any surprises in some areas that, there's more kids than we thought, or there's less than we thought, and looking at the number of our schools that are full and looking at that possibility of portables and that. So I know it's 7 months out there, but are there any trends that are, we're going to have to maybe have some problems coming into that school catchment area?
I'd say there are more confirmations than surprises, because Cumberland has already met their kindergarten registration numbers right now for next year. So we're assuming they're going to go above that. We knew Cumberland was a spot to watch, and these numbers just seem to be verifying it. And the same things happening in the Courtney East corridor with Aspen Valley View and Brooklyn. Those numbers are coming in very strong early, and we're assuming that it's just going to come. What we thought was going to happen is going to come to fruition.
Thanks, and I have the Secretary Treasurer.
And just to add to what Jeff said, Cumberland in particular, we need to add 2 more portables, because as we know, they're far over capacity, and that's our #1 capital submission request from the ministry. So those numbers really support our capital plan request, and that for September 24, we're going to need to add, or 23, add two more portables, just to deal with the current registrations, let alone our forecast. So.
Thank you. Trustee McCallum-Key.
Thank you. Chair, my question is regarding kindergarten registration that's coming so far online. Mainly that there's, as I went through my own son, the school you have as your catchment, and then the school you're hoping for, your intention is, I know tomorrow is the date that Cross Boundary opens. Do you foresee quite a lot from so far?
I don't think so with cross boundaries. When the board made the decision a couple of years ago to limit enrollment to 6 of our schools, it really really eliminated most of our cross boundaries. We will get some for sure, but 4, 5, 6 years ago, we had over 100 elementary cross boundaries and almost as many secondary cross boundaries every year. But that's because at that point in time, our schools were fairly empty, and we were actually encouraging people to apply to whatever school that they wanted, and now all our schools are full.
Can I ask a follow-up question just on how is it looking for Indigenous education and the French programs in terms of numbers?
Yeah, we had an expression of interest for programs of choice, and that went out a week before the French kindergarten and then regular kindergarten, and all of those programs have filled. So much so in French immersion that we added an extra cohort at Rob Road. So we have room for 80 students, and usually we take 60 in that program. So that's gone really well. And the Indigenous K1 at Putledge is already full.
Christina?
With what sounds like 2 new divisions up in my area, how much more space is up there to do that before we have to kind of look at what's going on before we get, like, the timing between us even getting a capital project and just that property needing another look?
I think it's very fortuitous, the timing, because the fact that we need 2 modulars is going to just emphasize to the ministry that we also need this capital expenditure. And right now, we have enough room to put everyone in, but if it keeps getting delayed, we'd be concerned. But we can get placed in order.
And, if, I'll say when the Cumberland Capital Project is announced, the part of that project is addressing the seismic, which would mean demolition of the annex. So at that time, we'd need another 2 portables to move those students in as temporary housing while the expansion and seismic project is taken care of. So there's in the long-term forecasts for Cumberland area are continuing to grow far beyond what even we had forecasted this time last year. So the numbers are very strong.
We're very fortunate on that site that we have land and that we are not limited by septic and things like that like we are in many of our other places. So I think the ability is, as was pointed out, modulars will be no question, but we have, at least we have the site we can do that in. So day by day, year by year, until we get the word.
Thank you. Did you have anything else?
That's it.
Okay, all right. Moving on to the Secretary Treasurer.
Yes, and I'll speak to this item. So I just wanted to let the board know that Director Hesselgrave applied for a grant to Clean BC Go Electric Fleets program and received a grant of $24,500. Oh, sorry. The grant is $18,720, and we're going to use those funds toward doing a fleet assessment to look at transitioning our fleet to electric. So that those funds are going to go towards an assessment. So it was great to for Director Hesselgrave to identify the grant and then make the application, and then we were successful. So that's exciting. And Director Hesselgrave plans on, I believe, at the April meeting of doing an update of where we are with our energy initiatives in the district. So there'll be more information forthcoming.
Any questions on that? Trustee Alderson?
Curious what an assessment would involve. Is that sort of like looking at what we have and figuring out what the stages would look like to shift?
Yeah, so it would be looking at our overall size of our fleet and then, setting out a timeline for transitioning and, when, in consideration of initiatives provincially around getting rid of, non-electric vehicles, et cetera, and how, and also the assessment would help us identify potential funding sources, because as we know, electric vehicles are significantly more expensive, particularly for fleet vehicles that are used in facilities. So it's an overall assessment of what our current needs are, what our future needs are, and what our transition plan would look like for that.
Sorry, do we hire up?
Yes, yeah.
Trustee Keaton?
Just to follow up, will that include looking at what infrastructure is needed, charging stations and other things? Because I know people look at getting the electric car and then they're going to find that place where you plug in, and going certain distances, there are limitations in how many kilometers and area going on. So that would be part of that, looking at, can it go down to Victoria without a charge? So that would be part of that
Yes.
assessment?
Yes, and so overall, the projected cost for the assessment is the 24,500, and so the difference between the grant and the 24,500 will be covered through our annual facility grant. So, but yes, that would definitely be part of the assessment. Overall, what we would need to transition to fully electric.
Trustee Mesa?
I just wanted to double check because I thought that we were in the process of ordering an electric vehicle, and I was under the impression that the grant program was to cover the cost, the capital cost of that. So the grant program actually is in fact to be utilized for assessments then?
Yes.
And that's what we applied for?
Yeah.
Okay, so our electric vehicle was not a part of any grant program?
No, it will probably qualify for rebates at the time, but we have an order in. We've been told that it'll be a year to 2 years before we would even get access to the vehicle that was ordered. So it's a ways down the road, unfortunately.
Is that a raised hand or no?
No, no,
Okay, I was just
sorry,
checking.
guys. Just
No, no,
holding
no,
up my hand.
that's okay, that's okay.
Pardon me. It's hard
That's
for
not
me
what I
to
meant.
see,
That's
like-
not what I meant.
I think it's just because I'm at the end here. I'm
Okay,
trying to
all right.
make it.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we're on to retirements and recognition. Trustee Leslie.
Awesome. Under retirements, we have Barbara Matson, Education Assistant, Inclusive Education, retiring effective April 10th, 2023, after 30 years of service. And Brenda McPherson, teacher at Highlands Secondary, retiring effective March 31st, 2023, after 31 years of service.
Thank you. Moving on, there was no open committee of the whole meeting in January. The next meeting is February the 14th. There are no board standing committee reports. So now moving on to board business. There was a notice of motion provided in the agenda regarding a letter to our minister. And Trustee Caton, did you want to speak to the notice of motion?
Like, most of the motions are just non-debatable, but I'm wondering if we can waive the 48-hour notice of motion in this instance. I think writing the minister an invitation to visit us is a very simple request, and I'm wondering if the board would consider waiving that 48 hours of notice and adopt the motion this evening. So I'm making the motion that we waive that 48-hour notice to adopt the motion this evening.
Okay, and so we need 2/3 in favor to waive a notice of motion, which is, in the case of 7, the same as majority, and so it's 4.
Did we get it?
So-
Was there a seconder to the?
So, sorry, is there a seconder for this?
Question.
So, but first we need a seconder. A seconder to
Yeah.
put the motion on the floor to waive the motion.
Waive
So
notice of motion.
To waive the notice of motion, thank you. Go ahead.
Is debate limited then to
Yes,
this,
whether or not.
the waiving as opposed
Yeah.
to the substantive motion? Okay.
Correct.
I have a question about the substantive motions.
Great. So is there anybody wanting to, because it's debatable,
Yes.
the waiving of the notice is debatable. So is there any questions or comments about waiving the notice? So the motion is on the floor to waive the notice.
I have a question,
Mhm.
if I may. Thank you.
So we are considering waiving a 48-hour
Correct.
lap for the motion that invites the Minister of Education.
Right, so
Correct?
then what would
Thank
happen
you.
is if waiving the notice of motion passed, then the notice, then the motion would come on the floor about doing whatever the motion says.
Thank you.
Is that correct? Okay, good. All right. Thank you for the question, though. This is important. Seeing no further hands, all those in favor of waiving the notice of motion? Okay, great. Down, is there any opposed? That's carried. So we have waived the notice of motion. And now the motion is before us. And the motion, as put forward by Trustee Caton, reads that the Board of Education for School District Number 71, Comox Valley, write a letter extending our invitation to the Minister of Education and Childcare, the Honorable Roshna Singh, to visit our district. Is there a seconder for that motion? Are you seconding?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you. In more verbal.
Trustee Caton, did you want to speak to this?
So the minister in her recent, I guess, press releases has talked about getting around and visiting districts in the province. And this is just a formal request acknowledging her to come to our district. There's many things we can celebrate and share and examples, and having her come to a growing district so she can get a first-hand look of what's happening here, all the great things, some of the challenges that we are facing. So when then we do our advocacy work and write the minister with some of those requests, she's got the experience of being here and visiting us and connecting with our students and the Board of Education. And I thought about this, and I was telling the superintendent, I think in my 17 years I can count on one hand how many times we've had a minister come to our district and actually do an all-day visit with us. And I believe this is a time that she said that she wants to come. She's working with districts. She's very, very, I think, presented like personable. And it's just, I think this is just, out of respect with the board, sent her a formal ask to come out. We'd like to come and visit us. And there's life beyond the Malahat. There's life of school districts outside the Lower Mainland, and so it'd be nice just to have that visit. So it was this intent to share the great, show some of the challenges, and visit a district that is growing and the amazing students and staff that we have in district supporting our students.
Thank you. Are there any? Go ahead.
Yes, I was wondering what kind of details we would be including, like that we would want to spend the day together, and who would be involved, and also wondering if we would be able to receive a copy of, obviously, the letter before it goes out for all trustees to see.
I leave that to the board chair and discretion of the board.
So if the motion passes, then we would craft a letter extending an invitation, and we would leave it to the superintendent and his team to work with the ministry, if the minister was interested in attending, to work out the logistics of what the minister might want to do and what the superintendent and the board might want the minister to do. And that there would be that dance, I would suspect, I'll call it, in finding a place that we can land on, and I'm sure it will be the right place. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Great. And I would add to this that I do know that in the one short session I was in with the minister, they did indicate that they wanted to talk to board chairs and representatives from districts, in the districts that they weren't familiar with and hadn't spent a lot of time in. So hopefully that was encouraging, and that the minister might be able to attend.
So I really like the idea of inviting the minister. I think there's a lot of benefits to it, and I think Trustee Caton particularly pointed out it would be great for her to see the district and have just a visual of what's going on here, some familiarity. I would hope that trustees would have an opportunity to speak together, work together to formulate like a series of what type of advocacy we would also be doing when she's here. And I guess I would just looking to see that that would be part of the plan.
Experience? Okay.
So normally in a situation like that, if the minister accepts the invitation, we'll get a call in and they'll say, coming to visit on X day between this time and this time. And they will indicate, we ask what kind of things are you interested in seeing? And they often will say, we'd like to have a session with trustees. In the past, we've had a lunch with trustees and, we'll ask what topics are you okay if our trustees would like to share some concerns about this or some information about that, and then we work through their office to arrange that. And normally in our past visits, we've had, when ministers have come, we have all trustees invited to attend those sessions, unless otherwise requested by the office.
Does that answer your question? Great. Good. Seeing no further hands up. Did you have your hand up? No? Okay. No, you did. All those in favor? Down? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on, so there is a second notice of motion, and it's a notice of motion to rescind, and it's to be brought forward to our February meeting to rescind a motion that was carried at our June 21st, 2022 regular board meeting. And next, we have a request from the Comox Valley Food Policy Council to School District 71 to appoint a school trustee to sit as a member for 1 2-year term to the Comox Valley Food Policy Council. And there's a recommendation in the package that the Board of Education of School District Number 71, Comox Valley, appoint a trustee to be a representative in the Comox Valley Food Policy Council Committee for a 1-year term. Are you moving that?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Lots, just no, one seconder, one head scratch. I'm doing really bad tonight. No discussion.
I think it's self-explanatory, and we normally do appointments for 1 year at a time. That's the reason why the board's recommending 1 year. And so I think it's a great opportunity to continue the work that we've been doing over the past few years, especially during the COVID and Lush Valley and all the great work they've been doing supporting our schools. Having a trustee sitting on that committee is a great partnership.
Thank you. And Trustee Howe?
I will make one comment about it, just given that it's later in the year. If, in order to build a relationship with them, maybe the person who's appointed to that committee, I don't know, maybe they're getting you in or something the first time, and then we move forward, just because I know we're late in the year joining some of our community committees.
I think we're a month late. I think we missed the January window for some of our committees' seats. Some of them still stayed on in a variety of ways. And I guess my only comment would be we would look to when the committees are reviewed annually and usually brought forward at the December meeting for discussion with the chair and the board at the time. And I'm just checking to see if there's anybody else, so go ahead.
And I'll follow up to Trustee Howe. There's nothing that says that we have to do this every December. I think it's something maybe the committee whole, we as a board can look at when these groups start meeting and maybe adjust our timetable. Because yes, it's been traditionally every November, December, because that's just how it's been for the last 17 years. There's nothing saying, based on what Trustee Howe was saying, we can't look at the other groups that we're working with and adjust our schedules with their schedules. So I think that's a very good point, us looking at how other groups are working, and maybe we can just tweak ours a bit.
I see no further discussion. All those in favor? It's down. It's carried. Thank you. So that's a really nice segue into the board committee document, the trustee appointments for 2022 and 2023. Looking forward to learning about what's taking place at all of the committees that the trustees are they're attending and representing the board in our district on. It's always appreciated when we can have a short written report to be included in the package as well as a verbal report. Was there any questions on the board committee trustee appointment document?
Do we still have 3 that we're looking for? Are these new?
Yes.
Okay.
So the equity and action subcommittees, is that what we're calling them, Superintendent? They have yet to be filled, and there's we haven't yet discussed the process for that. But once we do, then the board will be informed of it's an expression of interest or what the process is going to be. But we wanted them included for transparency, that those committees will be filled during this next year, calendar year. Did I miss anything on that one, Superintendent? Okay. Good. All right. Next, speaking of trustee reports and representation on committees, Trustee Leslie, your report on the Indigenous Education Council Committee. Or sorry, Indigenous Education Council. Correct.
Thank you, Michelle. I would like to share a few of the highlights from 2 IEC meetings that I attended as liaison in December and January, December 2022 and January 2023. Indigenous Education Committee meetings, IEC. I guess the December meeting was very notable as we had presentations from 3, 4, 5 teachers, an online learning support, 6 teachers, 1 program worker, and the Indigenous Education Coordinator. So the presentations varied in terms of students that the teachers were connecting with. All ages from K to 12 were being supported. Educators were being supported in classrooms and looking at learning through an Indigenous lens, what that looks like, feels like, and supporting educators in what learning environments might look like, supporting educators with resources, and connecting them with local knowledge keepers and supporting them in learning from the land in our local community. What was quite wonderful to see was there has been a lot of effort has gone into making sure that the grade 11 and 12 students are meeting the requirement for graduation on having that Indigenous education requirement met. And so Elena Jules, she is working with teachers in the high schools and providing really wonderful day storytelling and morning with Weledi Spec. So these sessions are still going on, which will support high school students in our district and getting the requirement needed for their graduation. So that was amazing. I think that Indigenous education is really looking to connect with community, build relationships, and support our board in those relationships. They're looking to connect with us and have a luncheon with us. They've done a lot of work in terms of their elders, and it's Noksala. It's the name of our amazing elders group. And I find this absolutely wonderful that our district has the opportunity to have elders in schools. And when this happens, this brings such a world of knowledge and experience, and another way of walking and being, a different kind of perspective in learning environments in our schools for all children, not just for Indigenous children. So elders were celebrated, luncheon was had for them at Christmas time as well. I do want to make note of our professional day coming up February 17th and how the work of the educators and support workers and Indigenous support workers, and how the team has worked together with the PRODI committee and providing breakout sessions for the afternoon, and acknowledge all of the work that everybody has done in supporting all of us in the learning of that day. In the January meeting, the Equity Scan Steering Committee, a lot of the IEC members, I think there's 5 or 6 of us that are on that committee. So there's representation from Nikki Sue, from KFN, of course, from the board, from the liaison, and my role, and from, of course, the district principal of Indigenous Education on that steering committee. And as Michelle shared, the regional meeting that we all attended was powerful. And I can see some wonderful work that we are about to participate in the journey that we're all going to paddle. We're all going to be in the same canoe, paddling together as we unpack equity in our district. Okay. The Indigenous Parents Advocacy Club is called IPAC. A group of Indigenous parents in Bruce Carlos are taking a lead on reestablishing IPAC in our district. A lot of the regular meetings and events were postponed since COVID, since March 2020. And prior to COVID, there was 50 plus children and family members attending IPAC meetings, gym nights hosted at Lake Trail Community School. So we're looking to restart that and support parents and community. Okay, I think that's it on the report. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Yeah. All right, moving on to our next trustee report regarding the BCPC AGM last week. I'm going to turn it over to the 2 trustees whose names are on this, and because I'm not sure how you guys have divvied out how you're going to do your report back.
Oh, we didn't really divvy it out, did we now?
No, I feel that as an alternate, I will leave it to Christy, and if there's anything exciting I feel the need to share, I'll jump in at the end.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, we went to the BCPC annual general meeting. It was hosted in Vancouver. Chelsea, myself, and Brenda, our secretary and treasurer, attended. It was really, really educational to get more of the knowledge on how things are, our unions. We dealt with a lot of classes on things like conflict of interest, case law, various things like that. We did our voting. So we have a couple of new board of directors. We have School District 27, Cambridge Kilton, Angie Delaney was elected for the Northern Interior region. School District 38, Richmond, Donna Sargent was elected as one of our new directors for Metro region. And so those were the only 2 votes for positions that came up. We did all of our special resolutions and proposed ordinary resolutions were all carried in favor of. So that was nice. There was a little bit of controversy, but it's nice to see the whole group coming together, and it was really wonderful. The budget was approved. One of the big things that was one of the topics that was discussed extensively was new funding for recruitment for French teachers. that we have a significant deficit in the province right now, and so they're working really hard to come up with programs and strategies to lure in more French teachers to fill the positions. One of the things that we were also discussing, how different districts in the province, their successes and struggles with seamless day, and just before, looking at the model of daycares in the schools, how that's going to look, where we are, who's going to administer these programs, where the funding is coming from. And so there's some districts that have jumped on board on some of these pilot projects, and some of us have been a little bit more reserved. So we're looking forward to getting more information. So we've requested to share more data, and so we're going to be looking to our district liaison team to communicate further on that, so that I can bring more information forward to the board about that as we transition into the more seamless day with the daycare and such in the schools. I'm happy to report most of our local agreements. There's a couple of mediation and about 17 that are tentative, but most of the agreements, our local agreements, are all ratified for the province. So that's super positive. February 15th is the deadline for that. So there's still a few coming in, but hopefully everything's all taken care of and figured out, and everybody seems to be very positive about it. And we spoke a little bit about class action, about class law, and one of the things that we brought up was the fact that a lot of class action suits tend to be on a provincial level, and topics that are involved on a provincial level. And this is something that, of course, as districts, we all pay into, and it's getting quite substantial. And so we're trying to wonder if there's another way that we can look at this, and that maybe, the ministry could look at taking on some of those, provincial conflicts and issues that come up, as opposed to the burden being bared on all of the school districts in the province. So there's going to be more information coming on that. And there's going to be a BCPC regional meeting for our area, for the island, that's going to be happening in Nanaimo in March, and all trustees will be invited to attend for information, and I will get more information on that when I receive it and share it with the group. And I would love Chelsea to mention and just share her experiences as attending the BCPC AGM for the first time, which I was too, but fresh eyes.
Sure. I'll be brief. Yeah, I think everything that Christy shared was wonderful. We were lucky as newbies in this particular role to have Brenda there, who sort of went, maybe you should consider asking this. So it was really incredible to have that knowledge, and past trustee there sort of helping us to really ensure we had the information that we wanted out of each moment of learning. The only thing that I would add to that was that that they talked extensively about how positive a bargaining process it was, which Trustee Howe was a part of before we were elected this term, and that there are only 2 that are left in mediation of the support bargaining that are going through right now. So I think it's been the most seamless bargaining in a long time. The only thing I would say, especially following Trustee Leslie, is that they talked a lot about the Indigenous priorities they kept saying today, not tomorrow, and that they were discussing how there was 12% of students were Indigenous at this time in the province, and that there's only 5% of staff. So they're they're working with the Indigenous Teachers Education Program to put through some ministry initiatives to target that. Recruitment and retention, yes, both with the French educators and also with certainly Indigenous education. And the last thing I want to do is correct, because I don't want to be rude, but I think it's April 24th, 2023 is the Island Coastal Regional meeting, if that's okay to say. Thanks.
Thank you both. Just to add, the district was well represented by Christy and Chelsea at the AGM. Both were stood up and spoke at the mic and added to the group conversation and asked questions. And just to clarify, CLASS stands for Coordinated Legal Arbitration Support Services. So that's an acronym for the combined legal services that districts contribute to. So we had an update around some of the cases that were quite eye-opening that have gone forward provincially, and the work that CLASS does.
Any comments or questions from the trustees? It's a great report. Thank you. All right, moving on, board correspondence. There is none to share. And we move on to public question period. Just curious if there's anything through the airwaves? No? Okay. Any public for the public question period?
I have a question. The open community will be being held on February 14th. Is that going to be a hybrid meeting for all of boards to attend?
Hadn't given a lot of thought, to be honest, but it's something that, working with Josh, I'm sure it's something we can probably look at.
It'll be our first open committee of the whole, so
Yeah.
this is uncharted territory.
Yeah.
That's why I had the question.
Yeah.
Because I was just concerned with, we have a lot of parents who don't live exactly close, or community members who don't live exactly close. It'd be nice if there's a
So prior to COVID, they were always in person. Our education committee meetings were always face-to-face, and then we shifted to it being totally virtual. So we haven't unpacked that question, but thanks for asking. And we'll look logistically to see if we can do it or not. Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for the question. Alrighty, well, seeing no further questions and nothing left on the agenda except adjournment.
I'll move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, is there a seconder? It's carried, or sorry.
I'm not scratching my head this morning.
It's been
And I giggled
moved.
before, 'cause
It's
I
been.
thought you were looking at
it's
me,
been-
you're like, oh, now you wish you were on the BCPC.
It's been, it's been seconded. All those in favor? Down, it's carried. Thank you. We've adjourned at 8:07.